I need you to knock some sense into me. I'm sure you can.
Yeah, I don't know.
I enjoy listening to you. I don't always agree with everything.
All right, enough of this persiflage.
So, you want my question?
I'm certainly not going to get myself in trouble by telling you what to do.
That makes great sense. Gosh, that's good.
Did I overwhelm you with words and wisdom?
I've got 7 kids. I feel like I could call you every day.
Wait, you're telling me I'm wrong? Disconnect.
Yes, I am, Dr. Ray.
You just need to tune in to Dr. Ray, honey. He's got all the answers.
Am I right or am I right?
Probably.
Now, from the studios of Living Bread Radio Network in Canton, Ohio, the hometown of Mother Angelica, here's Dr. Ray.
Putting the parent back in parenting. Shrink-wrapping you to tighter thinking. Providing a psychological buffet for your options. And I am the psychological pit bull. Hopefully more pit than bull. Good to have you with me here on The Doctor Is In, the variant. This is our Friday variant, our general Friday variant. Look Back Friday. There are several calls up there right now in the queue for airing after my opening monologue. And then, because I wanted to say more about these calls, I want to say more about every call, obviously. This is not therapy, so I can't do that. But there may be something within the call that I wanted to comment on, but couldn't because we were addressing a central issue, or it was the issue that the caller wanted addressed, and I thought, boy, I'd like to go in another direction here, but I don't want to get too far afield. So there's reasons, all kinds of reasons. I like to think that they're altruistic reasons. In fact, they're probably pretty self-centered reasons. I just want to hear myself talk more. So we'll get to those calls in a moment. I don't know if this still has the prominence that it used to have. I remember many years ago there were psychologists or mental health types who glommed on to this particular idea. And it really doesn't have a whole lot of research support, but it certainly sounds plausible. And it intuitively, some parents say, yeah, that's it. Oh, yeah, I see that in my own kids. Mm-hmm. And that is something called the birth order effect. Simply stated, birth order effect is the notion that depending upon where the child falls in the family structure, is it child the oldest, the youngest, the middle, there will be certain characteristics the child will have because of his place in the sibling ranks. Theoretically, the oldest is the trendsetter, the one who the parents experimented on, has the rules. He's kind of the leader of the siblings. The youngest is, quote unquote, the baby of the family, and by this time maybe gets a little more spoiled because the baby, the parents have been through this a few times, so they're more loose with the baby. They're not as necessarily reactive or involved in so many things with the baby. But it's that middle child. Middle child syndrome was the name given to it. Now, you know, when it's called MCS, abbreviated, you know a disorder has arrived when you can call it by its initials because everybody's so familiar with it. The middle child, the lost child in the family structure. He doesn't have the privileges of the oldest. He doesn't get the attention of the youngest. He's struggling to find out, who am I in the sibling structure? And, as a result, he could have, quote-unquote, identity problems, a little more fragile self-image. Maybe he acts up to get attention, because he's not getting any attention. Now, these are the general ideas of birth order. Had a friend once, I was talking with him, he was a professor, and he taught developmental psychology, and I asked him, I said, Jason, what's the research say about birth order? He says, it doesn't support it. Only a little bit with the oldest and the only. They can be slightly more achieving. Maybe they develop a shade quicker, because the parents are always, where's your eyes? Where's your nose? Can you say that word? Say that word. Say thank you. All the stuff you really kind of pound away at with the older kid. You're so proud. Where's your pancreatic duct? Okay. How many toes do you have? What color's this? We do that, and then by the younger kid, it's like, what's your name? Where do you go to school? 3rd grade. When did you start 3rd grade? So, the only place that really holds oldest only. Now, many parents will tell you, wait a minute. My middle child is the one who seems to struggle the most. My middle child is the one who misbehaves the most. Or my middle child is the one who's insecure, kind of always fretting about things. Now, in most cases, they have 3 children. 3 children is much more common than 5 children. 5 children is more common than 7 children, and 7 children is way more common than 9 children. Most people who talk about the middle child having certain characteristics and their middle child has those characteristics have 3 kids. That's a much more common number. 5, 7s, 9s, 11s. These ain't common numbers. I don't know what the percentage is. I'm sure I could look it up, and Andrew, you could look it up. The percentage of families who have 5, who have 7, who have 9, who have 11. I mean, it's but an internet touch away. I'm going to look it up maybe on a break. But given that, are these parents wrong? Are they imagining that their middle child is like this? No, not really. But the better explanation is this. That's who the child is. That's his inborn personality. That's his wiring. That's his innate temperament. He would be that way if he was the oldest or the youngest. And I always tell parents, if you're that afraid of middle child syndrome, don't have an odd number of kids. You can only have a middle child if you have an odd number. If you got 4, you got an upper middle and a lower middle. Of course, when you had 3, you did have a middle child, but then you had another baby, and your middle child now becomes the upper middle. And then if you have 5, your former middle child is now upper middle, way up there, second oldest. But the former baby, when you had 3, is now the middle child of 5. You see how it just shifts all over the place? So middle child syndrome, middle child characteristics, middle child profile, really only holds if it would, and it doesn't. But if it were to hold, it would only hold if you had 3 kids. Because you start going beyond 3, and now the rank is shifting all over the place. And my wife and I had 10 kids. So how many middle children did we have over the years? Let's see, 3, 5, 7. We had 4 middle children over the years, all of whom left the middle child spot. We have no middle child now. With 10, we have an upper middle, lower middle. And when we adopted our twins, we had 4 children at that time. We had 6, 5, 3, and 1. We adopted the twins. They were 4. So then it was 6, 5, 4, 4, 3, 1. Now you could say we had a middle children duet because the 2 twins who were age 4 fell right in the middle of the 6 kids, and they both shared the middle spot. You see what I'm saying? It's a nice concept. Gets a lot of attention, not as much as it used to. But in fact, it doesn't really hold up. And it changes with the years. Think about this, those of you who have 2 children, and you'd very much love for God to bless you with a 3rd. So right now, the younger of your 2 children has latent middle child syndrome. Hasn't kicked in yet. Has to kick in when you have a 3rd one. And then it needs time to kick in. It's got to go for several years of being the middle child. You start shifting around that birth order, and you throw in a 4th child, now all of a sudden, he was middle child for 3 years, but he's not middle child anymore. Now, Did he have acute middle child syndrome back when he was the middle child, but now he's not the middle child? Does he have residual middle child syndrome? Did he have chronic middle child syndrome when he was in the middle of 3, but now he's the second oldest of 5, and your baby of 3 is now middle child? So can you contract middle child syndrome when you're 7? You didn't have it before. Now you're middle. I'm being facetious, but not so facetious, because it all enters in. It's a great, fun concept. Doesn't seem to hold up. And if you're thinking, Dr. Ray, it does. My middle child of my 5 children is by far the most difficult. Well, I think it's safe to say, according to his or her wiring, they'd be the most difficult if they were 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5. It's who they are, and it's not their order in the family. Thanks for joining me on this Look Back Friday. Dr. Ray.
We'll return after these messages.
Broadcasting in multi-languages. That's right, this show goes around the world. Now, I've been really trying to... There's thousands of languages in various dialects, and I've been trying to master some of the bigger ones. Been working on my Australian accent, because we have folks who listen in Australia. So I just want to say I'm going out for a walkabout. It's pretty much all I know. So if I have to order in a restaurant, I'll just go, walkabout. Okay. Maureen, New York. Adopted her son from Europe. And it's been a bumpy ride.
Yeah, I adopted a son from Eastern Europe, and, you know, I've had him for about 27 years. I got him at 3. It just seems like he was always, in the beginning, he was kind of contrary, and now it's like even worse. I'm always stepping on eggshells, and he gets very angry. He flies off the handle very quickly. I just don't know how to approach him anymore. I mean, he's like very impulsive, unreasonable. You can't talk to him, and he's way past 25. I mean,
does he live with you?
I don't know what to do.
Does he live with you?
Well, right now I gave him an apartment. I pretty much pay for everything because I want him to do a little cleaning there on this property, and yeah, I give him little chores to do. But whenever I give him a chore to do, he'll say, "Give me more, give me more." I go, "But you haven't even done the first chore." Mm-hmm. And he's and also a habitual liar. Like he'll say, "I'm cleaning the apartment," when I go and there's trash all over the place. Like I was there yesterday. He went to work and I was like, it was so hot in the apartment. I said, "Well, there's an air conditioner. Put it in." I know and he's always tired. I don't know. And I tell him, go for a checkup. It just seems he's not happy.
Maureen, when you adopted him from Eastern Europe, which country was it? Romania, Bulgaria? Where was it?
Well, it was Russia.
Okay.
You know.
And how old was he?
He just became 3.
And
do you know 3? And when I got him, he was just 2 months past his 3rd birthday. He was there a short time because the person managed the orphanage. Her daughter couldn't conceive, so she was thinking of adopting him. Then she conceived and she gave him up. But he was going to their place on the weekend, and there were nice little pictures of them on picnics and everything together. So he was kind of privileged at the orphanage. It seemed that way by pictures.
So he spent 3 years at an orphanage?
Yeah.
Okay.
But do like part-time in someone's house.
Mm-hmm. Do you know if there was any? Do you know if there's any alcohol use when she was in?
I don't know, because the records were. I didn't get much on the records, but it just like he flies off the handle very easily.
Okay. And
right now he's like more frustrated because I don't know. His girlfriend left him after 4 years. Just because she said, I said, why did you leave? I mean, she told me, she was because basically lying. You can't trust him. He lies a lot, and he does the same thing to me. I'm cleaning, Mom. I'm going to send you a picture. I don't even respond anymore because he's been saying that for the last 3 years. So I don't respond anymore.
Maureen, when you do not know the history of a child, especially one from overseas, you can probably assume they're going to be hard to raise. There's going to be perhaps learning problems, personality adjustment problems, impulse problems, deception problems, things that are hard to socialize out of this child as he gets older. Because that first 3 years and in the womb, he was not with you. He didn't have your stimulation. He didn't have your interaction with adults. When you live in an orphanage, forget it. There was just a boatload of kids there, and whatever attention he got was bits and pieces from workers. So in many, many respects, he was probably delayed, and his neurological development, especially in the higher parts of the brain that are involved with judgment, good decision-making, anticipation, impulse control, weighing consequences, all these things didn't quite get the meat that they would have gotten if he was with you.
Well, what can I do going forward? I understand all this. I took a chance, and I'm not blaming anyone. Well, I made that decision.
What you do going forward...
What can I do going forward? Because he's basically not a bad person.
What you do going forward is you recognize, unfortunately, that he's going to make a lot of bad moves.
Oh yeah.
And you're going to either hear about him or be asked to pick up the pieces, and you'll have to decide whether you will, or do what you said to me just a few sentences ago, which is, I don't even want pictures anymore because I know he lies. All right? So you solved that problem. Yeah, you solved that problem. You're not going to frustrate yourself because he doesn't tell you the truth. And you know that now. So you don't get all upset. You recognize...
No, I don't get upset. That's why I handle it better now, calmer. Correct.
That's the best thing you can do. You recognize he's a 27-year-old young man who is, at this point, probably very immature and is...
Oh, my God. You said it so immature. Yesterday, I just spoke to him, and he didn't like what I said. He came from work, and he slammed the door so hard I thought it broke.
Certainly. That's right.
You can't even...
Right. I don't want to say quit trying, but what I'm going to say is, in many respects, you have to let him make his decisions, feel the results, and recognize you can't, in many cases, make it better. You can't. Okay? He's going to do what he wants, and you even tried to give him advice, and he exploded. So, given all that, you got a young man that you're actually supporting by letting him live in a place, and you've had a few requirements on him, most of which he hasn't even met. So, given all that, you recognize and you say, okay, this is how his brain works. This is his personality. So, in fact, he's going to make life really tough for himself. He is. Now, I'll pick up whatever pieces I wish to pick up. Other pieces I'm not going to. I'm going to let him experience the results of his actions. But the days of you trying to fix it and make it all better, you're just going to get frustrated. This has to be one of the most common senses of impotence that parents have with young adult children who are messing up their lives and who do not want any opinions or guidance or suggestions or options at all. Now, in Maureen's case, he's certainly willing to take her support financially, obviously. And this is not a therapy session, but I would have explored with Maureen, what is it that is keeping her supporting him? What exactly is that? Does she think he just can't hold a job because of his personality? She's afraid of what will happen to him if she stops supporting him. He'll be on the streets. What is it that she continues to support him that way? In these kinds of circumstances, if these folks come into my office, and a lot of them do, often my advice is don't give advice anymore. That's it. You know how it's received. You know the reaction you're going to get. She got a slammed door, a heavily slammed door, simply because she gave him some kind of suggestion. Or even just an observation, not even a piece of advice. When you know this, How long does it take you to come to the conclusion that this is not something that is going to have any impact at all? As a matter of fact, if it has any impact, it's going to be negative. You got to let it go. You can't say anything. And the drive of a parent is just, it's so intense to try to help the child, this flailing 20-something adult who's just doing all kinds of things that's making their life miserable, and they're not a happy person. Don't they connect the dots and see the way they're living is creating this kind of emotional upheaval in them? No, they don't. That's part of their struggle. They don't have self-insight. Because of that, it's just so very hard for a parent to say, I'm going to say no more. This person is going to make their life decisions. And as I said a couple of times during that call, you have to decide after they make these life decisions and they blow up, what are you going to do to fix it up? Or are you going to do nothing? Again, it's parental preference in all this. You decide. But the one thing that is certain is that persuasion now is no longer one of your options. Reasoning is no longer one of your options. Giving options is no longer one of your options. Maureen said an interesting thing. She said, I give him little chores, and he asked for more, but he doesn't even do the chores I gave him. So that raises the question, do you even want to suggest any more chores? If he's not doing them, why lose credibility by saying, okay, here's a chore. Oh, thanks, Mom. I'll take care of it. And then nothing. It's not unusual to see this kind of chronic lying in kids who have been neglected early on in life, who have been exposed to drugs or alcohol in the womb. It's not unusual. For whatever the reason, there's almost like a self-protective instinct that's kicking in and saying, you know what, I'm going to lie when I have to lie because I don't want to face the consequences and I don't want to hear it. You got to know when to shut up. Very nice to have you with me. Dr. Ray, the program Doctor is in Monday through Friday. This is Look Back Friday. This is where we take, that's silly, where we take. I mean, you didn't take them. That's kind of like that forced teaming. You know, you include somebody. They say don't do that when you're right either. Let's take a look at this. What we find in a case like this, I don't know. I remember a very skilled writer saying, don't do that. Why are you incorporating another person? I suppose you could do it. It's not a sin. It's not a literary sin, but I kind of shy away from it when I say we. But okay, we can use we if I'm referring to me and Andrew Kruchek. This is where we, me and Andrew Kruchek, not me and you, take previous calls. Andrew edits them, and then we replay them in part, and I comment further upon them. How's that better? Carl from Missouri has a tough time dealing with those he describes as insincere.
My question is, how do you handle yourself when the parents, the people that run where I live, they're not all insincere and they have different agendas that aren't constructive or safe for me? I feel that I pay attention and worship at the Holy Mother Church and take Pope Leo the 13th as a father. He's the Pontifex Maximus of Rome. So how do I handle myself?
Well, what kinds of things are these folks saying and doing?
Like it's a fight just to get towels for my shower, and a beach towel that I used disappeared, and my scissors are gone, and they deflated a donut that you sit on. Those are 2 or 3 or 4 examples.
Carl, do you live with other people? You live in a group home setting?
Yes.
Okay.
And I keep my door locked.
So you think that the folks around you target you because of your faith?
Of who I am, what makes me up. Yes, faith's a huge part of it. I'm not evangelizing, hitting other people's beliefs, core values.
Are the supervisors aware of this where you are?
They're the problem. A few of them are.
Have they done anything to you that goes beyond inconvenience?
Subliminal.
So you're saying very subtle stuff.
Yes.
And
that
how long?
May lead to something bigger.
How long has it been going on?
From me.
Carl, how long has it been going on?
Since April.
What was it about April that this started?
I've got to watch what I eat. I had a salad that didn't agree with me.
Carl, do you see a psychiatrist?
Oh, I've seen, yes.
And,
yes.
and are you currently seeing a psychiatrist?
Yes. And I've been adjudicated normal.
Okay. Do you have a diagnosis, my friend, that you wish to share?
Yes, but I don't wish to share it.
Okay.
That is not me. That doesn't
Gotcha.
define me.
Okay. What I would suggest is this. Your next appointment with your psychiatrist, you tell the psychiatrist, male or female, about this. You say, here's what I see happening.
Mm-hmm.
This is, I'm, and be very specific with your psychiatrist. Say, I'm picking up subtle cues from others that are persecutory. I think they're persecuting me for their own motives. So let the psychiatrist know that and see what they will say or do about it. Will you do that? Will you feel funny by sharing those perceptions?
No, persecuting for what? For their own objectives.
Well, for whatever you believe, and I would offer to the psychiatrist what it is that you think their motive is. That why would they be doing this to me? And it started, you tell the psychiatrist, it started in April with something you ate. Be specific about that. Psychiatrist needs to know that. That's my suggestion for you, my friend. Did you pick up what I was doing there? You probably did. Okay, first of all, we've established, at least I'm going to assume, that Carl's in a group home. Now, what kind of group home? For developmentally disabled or for mental health reasons? He said that he keeps his door locked because he thinks that people are particularly targeting him. For a clinician, for somebody like myself, who has also worked in state mental hospitals, you attempt to establish whether this is delusional thinking, paranoid type thinking, or there is some truth to it. Now, all delusions are not just automatically made up thinking. They can have some relationship to reality, some. So it may be that Carl has, in fact, had a few things happen to him, and his interpretation of it became somewhat delusional. And notice how I told him to tell the psychiatrist about the salad. Not because I thought, oh my, something in that salad set him off. No. You tell a psychiatrist worth his salt, her salt, that this all started when you ate a salad. Okay, this is delusional. And I wanted him to share that with the psychiatrist. Carl didn't pick up that I was saying that. And I didn't want him to pick up that I was saying that. I wanted him to think, okay, this is important. I better tell the psychiatrist this. And I also suggested, tell the psychiatrist not only what they're doing to you, but how you read their motive. Because the motive can point to paranoia. Now, we know he already has a psychiatrist, and he didn't want to say the diagnosis, which probably more likely was a mental health diagnosis as opposed to a developmental diagnosis. Because he sounded reasonably articulate. So I would just, on the basis of the brief contact, that he's probably in the normal or low normal IQ range. Maybe slightly delayed IQ range, but for the most part, he's capable of thinking. So the stuff that he's coming up with could be a resurgent, a flare-up of paranoid thinking, and it was important for me to get him to tell that to the psychiatrist because he doesn't see it as paranoid thinking, if that's what it is. Filling the psychological potholes in the road of life, providing a psychological bridge between the Generation Xers and me, the Zers. This is Look Back Friday. The doctor is in. I got time for one more call. We're going to go to Julie. A very generationally common problem now, especially among people that still want to practice their religion faithfully, but their grown children do not. This is Julie. She was cut off by her son and her daughter-in-law. What did you do that your daughter-in-law is convinced you're the devil?
Well, those are my words, but
I know. I'm quoting you.
Very, very tedious, silly little things. And everything that was presented at me, I apologized for. I said, I'm sorry, there must have been misunderstanding. I begged for forgiveness, apologized, and then this has been going on for 4 years now. Then we meet for peace again. Same things are brought up. You know, then there's a new goal post that I surpassed that I didn't know about. There'll be something new that I was doing wrong that I didn't know I was doing wrong. And it just, I got to the point where I'm just like, I knew I couldn't win.
You kind of shocked at your son, who so quickly who has gone along with his wife's idea of, I don't want your mother around us?
It hurts. It definitely hurts. I know he's a good man and he just wants to do what's right. So I pray for him and his family. That's what I do. I pray. I guess part of me feels like maybe that's why I'm in this, is just to pray for them. But it's hard because I want to be, that grandma. And my first husband died. And so I'm remarried, and my husband now has a daughter that he is estranged from as well. We have 10 grandkids between the two of us, and I get to see 3. And
Julie,
my parents lived in Colorado, and I didn't have that interaction that I wanted my kids to. So I always wanted to be that grandma, and I just, thank God I get to do it with 3 of them.
Julie, do not mishear me. Unfortunately, I see so very much of this. This is now a phenomenon that is pervasive in our culture, that so many of these adult children are saying, just better. I don't want my mother around. I don't want my dad around. I don't want my parents around. I just don't want them around. I don't like the way they are. I don't like the way they say. And oftentimes what happens is you've got this very hypersensitive, prickly daughter-in-law, son-in-law, sometimes even daughter-son, to anything that the parent could say that can be misinterpreted. And half the time, I'm reading between your lines, that you don't even know what you said, but you found out later. So what? Oh, man, she took that all wrong. All right, I'll apologize. But then what happens is she gets to the point where she thinks, yeah, you'll apologize, but you'll just do it again. You just do it again. And there seems to be no tolerance or insight on their part that says, okay, I may not like what she says, what my mother-in-law says, what my mom says, but that's his mom, and these are her grandkids, and we can tolerate this. Now, Julie, I'm going to ask a question here, and I suspect the answer I'm going to get, but if I get the answer I don't think I'm going to get, I'm going to be even more upset. Has your daughter-in-law and son pretty much drifted away from the faith?
Yes.
Okay. So their view of it is, we really have no obligation to you. We don't have to honor.
Oh, I even got asked where it says in the Bible where Jesus had grandparents.
Okay. Well, they're shooting from the hip and flailing away. Yeah, I know. You could cite for them the fourth commandment, but that'll just make them mad. So I would say this, dear. First of all, whatever you said or did out of clumsiness, out of awkwardness, out of not realizing how your daughter-in-law is seemingly so capable of running the wrong direction with stuff that you say. You didn't realize it. Maybe you realize it now. And you've apologized. If, in fact, it somewhat smooths over, here's my suggestion. You give no opinion, no advice, no comments about anything in their lives, in their politics, in their religion, in their child rearing. Not one stinking word. You ask about how things are going for them, how your little granddaughter's doing in school. You ask about the most benign things because your goal is not to say stuff that your daughter-in-law can run with and say, this is an example of your mother. This is what she's like. Now, one more thing. I know you're probably hurt that your son is going along with this. In therapy, I see a lot of one spouse going along with the other spouse, usually an in-law, who says, no, I don't want your mother or your father or both in my life. And they go along with it. And one of the reasons they go along with it is that they have to live with that person. That if they
go along to get along.
Yes. If they didn't do it, the marriage, which is probably rocky already, would get even rockier. So they choose the lesser of two struggles. Which is, okay, I'm going to go along with her. I'm not going to fight her. She seems to be pretty adamant. She's hostile toward my mom. All right. Okay, I'll flow. Now, I don't know how long he'll do that, and maybe he'll find some way to contact you by himself. But that's often what I see here, Julie. So, like you say, don't be too quick to say, even my own son has turned on me, because there's a good chance he doesn't want to do this, but he feels compelled. Dr. Ray, you say that some of these calls are selected because you'd like to say more about them. You pretty much talked the whole time on that call, and you were saying all kinds of stuff. That wasn't enough for you? No, it wasn't. In the beginning of the call, and I didn't chase this. In the beginning of the call, Julie said things like, she'll say something, and then she'll apologize, and then maybe things will smooth out for a while. Then she'll say something else that upsets the daughter-in-law. Then she'll apologize. She'll say something else and she'll apologize. So why isn't that in time smoothing out the relationship? And I think here's the reason. When you do something, say something that somebody doesn't like, reacts badly to, and you apologize and they seem to accept your apology, but then you do it again, some type, and you apologize. They get to a point where they say, this is who you are. You do these things. You say these things. Now, I'm not saying that what you're doing or saying is wrong at all. I'm not saying that. It's their perception that what you're doing or saying upsets them. Okay? They conclude, that's just who you are. And I don't like who you are. I think that would be the explanation for the situation with Julie. Because she said she's apologized multiple times. Given whatever she said or did, that the daughter-in-law took a certain way, even if Julie didn't mean it that way, or even if Julie was out of line, she apologized. So why is the daughter-in-law still hanging on to this kind of cold distance that she's put in place? And I think it's because if we were to say to daughter-in-law, what's your mother-in-law like? She would have some pretty negative traits she would use to describe her mother-in-law as she sees it. As she sees it. I'm not saying they're true. As she sees it. She wouldn't say, well, my mother-in-law says this. Or my mother-in-law does this, and she's done it a number of times. She wouldn't focus on the actual particulars of what mother-in-law did. She would extrapolate from those particulars to a personality style. That's my mother-in-law. And no matter how many times she apologizes, no matter how many times she comes to me and she says, I just want to make the relationship better, I don't like who she is. That's really what it comes down to. And that'd be my best guess. When these kinds of things happen repeatedly, the person who claims offense, the person who misinterprets and gets upset, the person who accuses you of bad motives, if they happen a number of times, and I don't know how many numbers, it depends upon the person that's interpreting, they're going to jump to the conclusion that these are not just isolated pieces of misconduct, in my opinion. These are traits, personality. As I said, that's who you are. And so, no matter how many times you apologize, I don't like who you are. And so it's just better to not have you around, because I know, in my opinion, because this is who you are, you're going to do it again. And I'm sick of it. Sick. And that's what happens. And I think that's the way to explain the dynamic between Julie and her daughter-in-law. She said it's been going on for 4 years. Only God knows how many times there were those situations that were prone to be misunderstood or were prone to be taken badly on the daughter-in-law's part. Or we could even say that Julie, in an honest self-insight, would say, yeah, there's a few times I said and did things I was out of line. So you clump them all together, a big ball, and you conclude that's how daughter-in-law thinks she is. And because she is, she's going to do it again, and I just don't want to put up with it. So she's decided, I don't have to tolerate this. I am not bound by the fourth commandment. I'm not bound by the works of charity. I am bound by my own self-contentment. And my self-contentment says I am better off if you're not there threatening my self-contentment. Dr. Ray. for joining me here on The Doctor Is In. This is Look Back Friday. I appreciate all the work that Andrew Kruchek, my producer man, does over there in editing these original calls. I wrote a book called Jesus, the Master Psychologist. In it, I looked at Jesus's prescriptions for life, how to live morally, how to live better, how to live closer to him. And then I talked about that from a psychologist's perspective, how they make so much sense, psychologically speaking, but how sometimes modern psychology would disagree. And in this case, if Jesus is God, then modern psychology is wrong. This was the quote that I had at the very beginning of the book from C.S. Lewis. The Christian and the materialist, meaning the person who says this is all there is, this is just it, this is the universe, hold different beliefs about the universe. They can't both be right. The one who is wrong will act in a way that simply doesn't fit the real universe. Consequently, even with the best will in the world, he will be helping his fellow creatures to their destruction. One of the reasons people avoid looking at Christianity is because they see it as constricting, stopping them from doing the pleasurable things they would like to do, from being the autonomous self. But if there is a God and he says, do it this way, don't do it that way. That way will hurt you. This way will help you. But I don't think it would. If there is a God, he's right. And he knows. And you'll find that out. Lewis was right. He believed in God. Thank you for joining me here on The Doctor Is In on this Look Back Friday. I appreciate your company. And walk with God. Because that's the best walk. He knows how you will walk the best.
For information on Dr. Ray's presentations, books, and CDs, visit drray.com and follow him on Facebook and Instagram. The Doctor Is In is a co-production of Ave Maria Radio and EWTN Radio and carried across the EWTN Global Catholic Radio Network.